Grief is a monster, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. Welcome to Horror Hysteria, where we delve into the depths of horror and the human experience from a therapist's perspective. Today we're taking a closer look at the Babadook. The Babadook is a psychological horror that goes beyond the scares. In this review, we are going to look at it through the lens of grieving and the grieving process. So I'm going to imagine that my new client is Amelia. She's a woman who's haunted by her darkest emotions. After the loss of her husband, who died on the same day that she had their son. Of course, this creates a challenging association with her son and the loss. In the Babadook, we see a portrayal of grief and the psychological impact it has on Amelia's life and on the relationship she has with her son. They do a really good job at making this kid seem really irritating. I will tell you that from my experience, oftentimes challenging behavior from children can be remedied by adjustments to what their parents are doing. Parents are a big factor in children's behavior, just saying. Babadook skillfully captures the internal struggle between denial, anger, and acceptance, all phases of the grieving process. This film doesn't shy away from the dark and uncomfortable aspects of grief, but unable to separate her son from the loss, she starts developing resentment. Of all of this and her own emotional turmoil, a book shows up, The Babadook. The book presents as an unfinished story, which is pretty loud symbolically. Of course, the Babadook serves as a clear manifestation of grief. So if Amelia walked into my office, I would want to focus on addressing grief through psychoeducation and support, understanding the grieving process better and what is normal versus what is not. And I do want to say that the grieving process varies per person. So it's not going to be the same per person. You're not going to go through the stages in order. And sometimes you're going to have to revisit old stages. It's just the way it is. I would also want to look at any unprocessed trauma because, losing your spouse is pretty traumatic, especially under the circumstances. I do want to point out that Amelia, due to her son's birthday being on the same day that her husband died, has not celebrated his birthday on the actual day and has combined it with another child's birthday in an effort to kind of avoid that, which I get, but long term, avoidance is not helpful. Avoidance is our natural reaction to certain circumstances, but when we're able to, we do have to push back against the avoidance to prevent it from controlling our lives. I'd also like to explore ways to enhance her parenting skills and her relationship with her son because there's like a clear divide there throughout the movie that she has not bonded or she is not feeling very connected to her son and is feeling very frustrated by him. Again, I get it. As we said, the Babadook is a symbolic manifestation of the grief and the complexity of it. Because Amelia has not processed and felt the grief and has remained in denial, it has grown into the monster that we know as the Babadook. Amelia's patience continues to grow thinner with her son, and the book starts to reflect that. The book starts to write what is essentially a warning of the future, and it shows Amelia killing her dog and her son. And she does fall into an episode and R.I.P. dog. That part's a bummer. But Amelia eventually showcases her strength and her resilience by confronting the Babadook head on. Confronting grief head on is the way to handle it. As hard as that is, as challenging as that may be. But sitting with it, feeling it when it comes in waves, because grief does. It comes and goes in waves. The waves get a little bit less intense each time, but sitting with them, crying, feeling whatever you need to feel. Even if you're crying until you're exhausted and can't feel anything or cry anymore, and then you kind of sit and enjoy the numbness for a little while until the next wave hits you. That's how you process grief. If you don't process grief, it will get stuck, so to speak, in the process and can turn into something much worse, which is what the symbolism of this entire movie is reflecting. And it's not uncommon for parents to resent their children based on the other parent in some way, but this circumstance was unique because she lost him due to a tragic accident. In noticing that her son is similar to her husband, the distress and mixed emotions increase. The Babadook serves as a powerful reminder that if we confront some of our inner challenges or demons, that it can lead to personal growth and healing. I think it's a thought-provoking exploration into grief. And in the end, Amelia has to learn to live with and manage her monster. That is a very, very strong symbolism for the reality of grief. It doesn't go away. Once you've had an experience of profound grief, you're changed forever. I know that sounds kind of grim, but moving forward, you can make it into something more meaningful, and honestly, it gets easier to carry over time. In the movie, the monster is subdued and managed and kept under wraps, basically. So I like that in the movie, it's not about the monster being completely vanquished and that everything is a-okay. It's about the monster's not going to go anywhere. The monster's going to be there, but it doesn't have to have as much strength, and it can be managed and kept at bay. In the end, with the monster managed, it seems as if Amelia has decided to celebrate her son's birthday and look at it as a day of acceptance of her grief and of her loss. I think one of the little heartbreaking parts is when the little boy, he's trying to defeat the Babadook on his own, and at one point tells his mom, like, you couldn't love me because the Babadook wouldn't let you. Despite the irritation that this kid produces, which they do this masterfully in the film, he is a kid, and he just wants his mother's love, and his behaviors are a direct reflection of her problems that she isn't addressing. And that's not to blame her and say that she's like an awful parent. I can't imagine being in that situation, losing your spouse like that, bringing a baby into the world. It's pretty traumatic and horrific. And so, not judging her, she just needs some extra help and support. Remember, the stories we watch on screen can teach us valuable lessons about our own life. So if you enjoyed this review, go ahead and subscribe and like. Sure to check out some of my other videos on mental health topics and horror. And until next time, be kind to yourself and others.